What up, guys? Jason Guyman here with ChristmasLightsHelp.com, and today I'm going to have a little bit of Christmas light fun. And if you have questions, you can ask below, and I'll start showing more. I have a wreath right here. It doesn't really look like that because it's in front of a green screen, and the wreath is green, so it kind of looks a little funny. But I'm going to do a couple different things here. I'm going to show you some of the tools that I use. I'm going to show you some of the lights I use. I'm going to show you how to make extension cords. I'm going to show you a little bit of everything. And so this is something that I'm just going to come on here and talk a little bit about. And we're going to talk about how to do Christmas lights and everything we need to do with Christmas lights. And so if you have any questions, ask away, and we'll be talking about Christmas lights. Again, these look kind of funky because they're green. If I take if I go down here and I take away my green screen, you'll see it don't look so funky. It's just because I got my green screen on. So let's get going here. And so what do we need to have for Christmas lights? And this doesn't matter if we are a homeowner, if we are a company, we can use all this stuff either which way. Now, we use these bulbs right here. I got a few bulbs. I got a red one right here. I got a warm white right here. And if you look at these bulbs here, this is exactly what I used up there. And so these are called C9 bulbs. And these C9 bulbs, the newer ones are actually a little bit different than the older version. The older version would have two or three, three, five, seven LEDs in them. Now they have they're a little bit different the way they manufacture these now. These are actually Minion, can't speak today. Minion bulbs, and these are my favorite bulbs that I do like, and this is definitely something that I really like to use these bulbs. The next thing is we do all custom lights. We do everything custom. You can see this is the wire that is going around there, and everything along those right there. What kind of insurance do you carry? As long as you have a different business, a lot of times, like a lot of insurance agents can add it on as a rider for the different things, and it's not that much more for you. And that is how I did it for my business. Was they just added that to my rider, and then that was it. And so we got our lights here. This is how we can cut this stuff to length. You can see it's cut off at the end there. It's real easy to make extension cords. Again, you have your males and females. Right here is one of our males. Basically, all we got to do is just stick this in here. Back in the old days, an LED is a light emitting diode. And a diode will only flow electric one way. And so a diode is like a one-way check valve for water. And so if before you had to make sure that you put the right spot in here when we put it in there. So on this wire, if you feel on one side and feel on the other side, one side is rough, one side is smooth. You used to have to make sure the rough one was on the big one, but now it doesn't matter because they'll work either which way. So basically all we're going to do is just stick it in the little thing there, slide it over, and then we're just going to take the little cap that comes with it. It does have a notch on this side right here. This side does not. We want to make sure the notch goes on the back side there, so that slides right over there, and that'll slide right on there like so. In the wintertime, a lot of times you can do this with your hands just like I did, but sometimes in the wintertime it gets a little bit harder to do it. It will get to the point that it gets cold. The sheathing gets cold and hard, and then so basically what I do is take a pair of side cuts. This is how I cut my wire, and then I just slide it up and just slide it on like so. So when we're doing these bulbs, obviously we have to screw our bulbs in. So I'm going to screw them in on the other end because when I plug them in, that way that you can see that they work. So again, I have a female on the end here, and the reason why I got a female on the end there is if we don't put nothing on there, it can cause an issue. It can cause some things of getting shocked, and so we don't want to get shocked. I don't want it to short out. You know, if it gets down into a gutter and hits that side of a gutter, it can short out, and then that could cause us an issue. So that way it will not work. So we have our two things. I got a piece here. I cut the fit right here. Let me see here if I can do that. Let me plug this in real quick. I don't want to break that. My GoPro. I don't want to unplug my computer. I'm going to plug this in. And voila, we have Christmas lights. We have a red one and a warm white, and so that's as easy as it is. The only other thing we need to do is we need to put our clips on here, and so our clips will slide right on here. There is a couple different types of clips we can use. We can use the clips that that actually screw onto the. We actually have to screw them into the piece there, or you can get the universal ones that slide right on there and then slide right onto our gutters. And so, yes, this can get a little bit expensive when we're putting this up, but the good thing about this stuff is obviously these are plastic. You can throw them up against the floor, you can throw them up against the concrete, and they won't break. It takes quite a bit to break these bulbs. I've dropped them down several times off of houses, and they will not break. It takes a lot to break them. They will break eventually, but it does take a lot to break them. So again, this is how we can make our own custom lights to our house, and that's what we do. The other thing is we have our extension cord, and we're going to do the exact same thing with our extension cord. We're going to put our male and female on it, and then we're going to and just end up making our extension cord. And so when we are building a lights for a house, we're making them customized to the house themselves. We're not going, and I'm not having 10 bulbs hang over, or from my top to my bottom I'm having bulbs hang over. You can see in this picture here that it is custom. When I came from here down, I didn't run lights up. There's a short extension cord right here, and it jumps up and it feeds that whole top just from that one extension cord. So that comes back to the next thing is we have a timer. In this timer, they're cheap timers. There's nothing special about these timers. But again, you know, I've got all of this stuff here ran on one timer because we're using LED and we don't use a lot of voltage. Back in the old days, we used to use a lot of voltage. The new LEDs use very little voltage. So we're going to use this here, and this is what's going to it's going to plug in over there. So I'm backwards here, but this would plug in over there. It is pretty easy timer. These timers here are $10. These are not very expensive timers. These are very cheap timers. They last about 2 years, maybe 3. When the timer goes bad, cut the cord off and just pitch it. Because this is a callback. This is probably be one of the #1 callbacks you get is this bad boy right here. And so if you don't want callbacks, you can buy new ones, or you can buy the high dollar ones, but they don't last much longer either. The problem of it is there's a lot of electronics in this, and guess what? This is outside. So guess what? They're outside. They're not waterproof. Moisture gets in them, and you know that's what happens. I don't know if I'll be able to show it to you, but if you look on this plug, it's got a little tarnish and green on it. So that's telling me that it was in water, and that's what happens to them. And so this is definitely something that is the weak spot of your Christmas lights display. But you got to have them because otherwise you can't turn your lights on and off. So there is on-off sticks 4, 6, 8, and all night long. I always ask my customer how long they want me to turn them on. Obviously, most of the time I try to tell them to go for 6 hours. Obviously, it's going to come on at around here around 5:30. That means they'll go off 11:30, and then that's a good time for them to go off. So we make our extension cords the same way with our our quick connects right here. And remember, guys, I know this is this is usually dumb and nobody thinks about it, but remember, we always want one male, one female. We can have as many females as we want. We can only have one king dingling of a male. We can have as many females as we want, but we don't want two males on the same line. It happens. You might say that, oh, I would never do that. Well, I've seen it many a times, many a times. So I'm going to tell you a little story about this right here. It's pretty funny. So I have an employee. I have two employees, and they are not very bright. And they always tried, instead of using the pliers, like I teach, to push this on, they take their teeth and they go, and they tighten it on there. So this one employee, who's really not very bright, goes and does the same thing with this one right here. But what he doesn't realize is this end here had a male on it too. And this end here with the male on it was plugged in the house with power on. So when he went like this to chomp on that thing to get that to slide down, it hit his lips right here and it knocked him to the ground. Luckily, he wasn't on the roof or anything like that, but he fell to the ground and it knocked him out that hard just from that electricity coming up in there, knocked him out by doing that. I've never done that personally, but what I have done is, again, I plugged this in and I've taken this and I've touched it, and it will shock you. It will give you a good shock. It happens. I probably could tell if you've been in the Christmas light hanging business anytime at all. I'm going to say it's happened to you probably at least once. So how to keep this from happening is I always try to think, for me, it's easier to think water flowing. And electricity is technically kind of the same thing. It's electrons that flow just like water does. And so the bigger the water or the bigger the hose, the more water flows. That's called amps. And, the pressure is called volts. So it has a lot of characteristics of it. So what I always try to think is wherever this is plugged in is the water's coming out needs to come out females and not out males. So and the reason why this gets tricky is sometimes we might put, like, if I have, so this line right here, this coming up right here, and then right here, this could be the middle of the line. I might have started putting my lights up over here, came up, and this right here is the middle of the line. So I could put a male right in between these lights. I could put a male right in between these lights and plug that in right there. So now I have two females on each end. And so that is where it can get tricky, and that is what can cause issues. And that's usually what does cause issues. Or you'll have somebody that'll put two males on an extension cord, and there'll be two males, and now you got a hot male. And when we don't like hot males, unless you're a female, you don't like hot males. They'll bite. They'll bite you good. It left a mark, and it left a. It's still got a nice little. You can still see where it happened. The other thing is these are, you can only plug these in one way with the plugs. I don't know if you'll be able to see, but you can see the top one down, the bottom one right here is actually a bigger plug than there, and then on there, so it will only plug in one way, like so. Whenever I'm plugging these in, I always try to, if I'm plugging an extension cord into a female or anything like that, always twist them like so, plug them in, and then that way when I go to take down, it's all going to come down and it's not going to come unplugged. If I don't do that, and I just go in this way like so, it can come unplugged. Maybe this gets caught up on there or something, and I pull it, and now this is still caught up in there, and now I got to figure out, get my Mr. Long Arm to go get that. But if all I got to do is just sit there, go overhand it one time, put it in there, and now we're good to go, and it's a nice tight fit. If you want to learn more about Christmas lights, I am having some in-person classes. They will be. It's August the 26th, I believe it is. If you go to christmaslightshelp.com/in-person training, it will take you to it. It will actually take you to a pressure washing page, but at the bottom of that pressure washing page, it does talk about it. So that is what this is. Now, here is one other tool that I use. This is a nice little handy dandy tool. It's actually two handy dandy tools. We'll go over this one first and why I use this right here. So this is a GFCI interrupter. And this one, I don't really like this one. They actually make one of these with a short cord on it. It's about that long, and it's about that long, and it has 3 plugs in it. That one I like better. But when I went to the store, they didn't have none of those, so I had to come up with one of these here. But I use this on every house. This is the very first thing that gets plugged in. And the reason why this gets plugged in is if we do something stupid, like cut this cord that is hot and it pops the breaker. And then now we're in a whole nother issue. So if we use this, it should pop this here versus popping the breaker. Now we can reset this, and now we can keep working. A lot of times when we're installing Christmas lights, the customer's not home. So if we pop, and I've done it myself, I won't say I haven't, if we pop the circuit breaker or we pop the GFCI that's inside the house, we can't test our lights now because all power is off outside. So we have to figure out how to reset that. And if they're outside, we ain't resetting these. If they're inside, we're not resetting these. The GFCI inside or the circuit breaker. But that's why we use this little tool here. It costs you, between the two, I think you're around $50, 50, $60 for those two tools that will really help you. I'll explain this one here shortly, but I wanted to show this one first. And so the things that I can do with this here is I can plug this in like so. I'm gonna plug it in here, right? In Colorado. At least you admit it here before it happened. Yes, it does happen. So now you can see I have power. If I want to shut all my lights off, which I'm on backwards here, all I got to do is hit this button. Now I don't have power to this here because I don't have my light on. If I turn this one on, now I have light. I got light back here and I got light on here. If I test it, both of them go off. So that's the same thing, that if I cut this cord and it's plugged into hot power, it should, it don't always, but it should pop this. And when it pops it, then that way we know what issues we had. And there's lots of things can pop this. I have seen, one time I had a roll of wire. I had a whole nice roll of wire. It was a 500-foot roll of wire, and about 300 feet into the wire they had spliced the two wires together with no coating on it. So it was about from here to here, and it was complete bare wire where they just wired that sucker up. And so that would have popped it like so, because it's just a straight right across it there. So that is definitely something that we need to do. All right, so the next tool we have here is a kilowatt. And what this does is this tells us a couple things. It tells us that we have the correct voltage, and it tells us that we are not overloading the circuit. So my Crazy Bill TV is an electrician, and so most house circuits that are going to be outside outside things are going to be a 15 amp breaker. Now, that don't mean we can put 15 amps on that breaker, because that breaker will actually break at 80% of whatever it's rated at. So that breaker will trip at like 12 amps, 12, 13 amps. It's going to trip. So we can't be putting 15 amps on a circuit breaker. So what this does is we can plug it in here again. I'm going to do it this way because it makes it easier to see. So what this does is, first off, it's going to give us the voltage. You can see that it gives us the voltage right here. And so this isn't as important as it used to be. When I first started Christmas lights, this tool here was a must. Now, usually you can use this on troubleshooting only, because most of the guys don't understand it anyway. But the reason why I'm saying it is because this is a great troubleshooting tool. This is probably the number one training troubleshooting tool that you can use right here. So what we want to do is up on the menu, it's an up and down button. You can go down one time, and then it takes us to amps. So this right now does not have no amps coming out, and I don't have nothing that's going to pull anything, because the amps, even this one light isn't going to pull enough to show that one light. So the amps I'm not going to be able to show you very good for this. But to give you an instance, and what that means is like this house right behind me here. If we had this house in the old incandescents, we would have had to find like 3 different outlets, completely separated outlets off of a different circuit breaker. We would have had to run electric over the house, into the back, into the garage, the whole 9 yards. And why that is in the old days, the C9s, you could only run 130 C9s and you were at 10 amps. So this house here, I believe, had over 200 C9s. So it would have took 2 different circuit breakers just for that. These trees right here, this tree over here, somewhere, wherever, all these bushes right across here, the old incandescent bushes, you could only run 5 strands of incandescent lights on plugging them together, because if you did more than that, it would pop the fuse in the very first one, and that fuse was rated at 2.5 2.5 amps. So at that point, every 10 times you were having to find, we would be at 10 amps, we'd have to find another circuit. So we wouldn't have not been able to do what we did here. With LED, I believe everything that we had here was like right at 10 amps. It was very little. It was very little. I ran it off 2 circuits, just because I ran all the lights on the ground and then the tree off of one, and then everything on the house was on its own circuit. I really like running everything from the different circuits. I really like running all my lights on the same circuit. And the reason why I like running all the same stuff is because when they all come on, they all come on. Otherwise, you get the old phone call saying, some of my lights are coming on and some of them aren't coming on till another 10 minutes, you know. So then you're like, well, ma'am, you're on 2 different circuits. It is what it is. I can't help you there. And so we just got to do what we got to do there. So does anybody got any questions? I know I kind of did a lot here. Again, in-person training for Christmas lights is going to be in Cleveland. My first one here. If you can check the dates if this is after that date, but again, it is something. Again, when I do my in-person training, I teach you by PowerPoint, and then I show you, and then you do it. Again, I with Christmas lights, I do allow you to do the Christmas lights. We will have a one-story house, so we're not getting up on 2 stories, and you will get to put the lights on the gutters and see how it works in the whole 9 yards. So, with all that being said, we also have these beautiful wreaths here. You can see we hung one right here, we hung one right here, and one right here. These wreaths, like I got back here, are 60-inch wreaths, and those are 60. That house is just that big. It's a big house, and so it is. It is kind of huge house, and so them wreaths don't look very big. So if you do come to a Christmas like this first Christmas light one in Cleveland, you're actually going to be at the Powerhouse Wash here at his place because that's where we're hosting the first one. So, so you'll get to meet Dan and everything. But Christmas lights is an awesome way to make money in the wintertime. It is very profitable. It is probably it's very profitable. So when I first started doing Christmas lights, I always used the LED. But when I first started using these LEDs, this was when they were first coming out, and those bulbs cost $1 a piece. You couldn't get them any cheaper than that, unless you bought them from China, and even then, it was $1 a piece. They were expensive, but I always bought these because I didn't want to fight the electric side of things. My very first year of installing all my ground, I did. I did all my ground, my trees, and that kind of stuff. I did them in incandescents because it was cheaper. After my first year dealing with all the problems you have with electric and the lights and all that stuff, I went to all LED. The other reason why I went to all LED back then is because it's some things you can use to help sell your lights. It's cheaper to run. It don't use the electric. Especially if you got some tree huggers and they don't want all that electric being done. It will help you run that kind of stuff so that way it doesn't pull a lot of electricity. So I use these from the very beginning with the warm white, the LEDs. So in the very beginning, it was right around $2 a foot is what the cost was my cost. So I always tell people to charge $6 to $8. Because yes, the bulbs you can get for 70 cents. You can get cheaper ones even now. But even the good commercial grade you can get for 70 cents a piece. And with that said, time you get this and you get your wire here and you get your timer and you get your extension cord, you come out about $1.70 to $2 per foot for the cost of the C9 across the roof. If I was a businessman and I started my Christmas light again, my main focus, screw the bushes and trees, I would be this right here, wreaths and lights across the front. That is your moneymaker. That is by far your moneymaker. And here's why it's your moneymaker. It is because a lot of people don't like heights and they don't like trying to get up here. Let's see, this right here is right around a straight 40-foot ladder. And when I did this one the very first time, we started on this side and made it all the way up there, and they went boom, boom, boom on the freaking ground. And then I did it again, and then they did it again. So it sucked. So finally I had to get up on the roof with a different ladder. Is your online store page all up to date in current items with Christmas lights? No, it is not, Teak. I'm actually going to be selling Christmas lights. I just haven't, with everything else, I haven't gotten it up yet. I'm either going to get it up or I will give away to it. You can email me and I can send you the price list and everything like that. You got my Voxer. You can Vox me whatever you got any questions wise. So that is what you can do, Teak. Anybody else? Don't Vox because I'm not going to answer you unless you are Jason. Let's see. I didn't see that. At what point do you collect payment from the? That's a good question. That is a great question. So how do I charge? What point do I charge? So, there's two things. The very first thing is for me to put you on the schedule. When I first started, I did 25%. After last year, I was at 50%. So I take their credit card information, and to get put on the schedule, you have to pay 50%. And then the day after, I will charge it the rest of the money. I will charge it the rest of the other 50%. And the reason why I do that is a couple reasons. Um, you know, the worst thing you can do is go chasing money for Christmas lights. It's a lot of money, and it's dangerous. You're on a ladder a lot, or you're whatever, and so last thing I want to do is go chase some money. And so I would, some CRMs will allow you to, bill 50% of it up, and then hit the other 50% at the end of it. I would, and the great thing about that is even if you're booked out a week, you know, if you have to buy lights, that 50% will cover all cost of materials and then more. Because the way I bid my jobs, when I'm at that $6, $8, my cost, I try to three times everything I have. So one third of it's going to be labor, or one third of it's going to be the material supplies, and then two thirds is going to be labor and profit. And so the beauty of it is year two, you don't have that one third cost. You get all of it. And so that is something that is for sure that you want to do. But Christmas lights are a lot of fun. I love installing them. Even if you're doing it as a homeowner, you can do the same thing. The lights, like I say, these C9s right across here, they'll last you 5 to 7 years. These minis is a whole other ball game. They'll last you about 2 to 3 years, depending on what your climate is. If you're a lot of rain, like we get a lot of rain in our area, we don't get a lot of snow. So some issues that come with the good old Christmas lights is if you get a lot of rain during that season between Christmas and November to December, if you get a lot of rain, you're going to have a lot of issues probably. If you get a lot of snow, it's not as bad. The snow doesn't affect the lights near as bad as the rain does, because it's not melting going into the light. But the rain can cause issues. Where you really have your issues is all these ground lights right here. This is where you will have your issues. Lights getting puddled in a puddle of water, all that awesome stuff. So that can be the part that can suck. So that is part of Christmas lights, but that is also part of my $6 to $8 a foot. Is my guarantee is your lights will be running all the time. Give us a call. We'll be out within 24 hours, or you can say the next business day, whatever's easier. Sometimes if you don't want to go out on Saturday or Sunday, the next business day is the best way to say it. So then that way you can just swing by, fix it, and go. And then that way, if you say next business day, when it's the weekend, you don't have to worry about it. You will get a lot of callbacks on when it rains like cats and dogs on Saturday and they want you to come out on Sunday. Then that sucks. Now, once you get busy and you start getting a lot of installs, sometimes you might have to go out on Saturday or Sunday to be able to catch up and to be able to stay on top of it. Because if you're trying to do 4 installs a day, you ain't gonna have time to be running around trying to troubleshoot. So that's why we want to use good equipment and good stuff, because we want to make sure that it can be profitable at the end of the day. Again, this is not an easy sale always. We have to find the right customers. We got to follow up with those customers. We got to do everything we can to make sure that we are trying to close the sale. So, Christmas lights can, like I say, can be very profitable, but it's all about getting the leads in and getting the right leads in so that we can close those jobs and to make us lots of money. Any questions? I know I just spewed up pretty much everything in about 34 minutes, but it is true. And like I say, I love Christmas lights. I love hanging them. I love. I like. I love having. I like going around and looking at Christmas lights. And once you start installing Christmas lights, you can pick out professional installer, crappy installer, professional installer, crappy installer, cheap installer, professional installer. You know, you can definitely see who is good at installing and who is not good at installing. So, Christmas lights is something that you can definitely do to grow your side business. If you want it as a side business, if you are a landscaper, if you're a window cleaner, if you do, if you do roofing, if you have a roofing company, you can really do good with Christmas light. With our trees, I don't know. Let's see. We make them fairly easy. Again, we don't need a lift, and so we do it all from the ground. Unless the tree is bigger than about 35 feet, we can do it all from the ground with the Mr. Long Arm. Mr. Long Arm is a 24-foot pole, and if you're 5 or 6 foot, puts you at 30. With your arms reached up, you're about 32, 33 feet, and that's how high of a tree we can do. This tree here was all done by pole work. It's not the best looking tree. I didn't install those. Um, my employees did. And so again, it's better to have too many lights than not enough lights, and that's one thing I teach big time. A lot of times people want to go skimping, and skimping is not a good thing. Skimping is bad. Um, Skimping is not good at all. So this is definitely something that you will need to make sure that you install the right way and everything along those lines. How do you get customers? Best way to get customers I know of is AdWords. AdWords works really good. I know people that get business from Facebook. People get business from LinkedIn. We did a lot of commercial work, so like HOA entries and stuff like that. Those are some really good money makers, and that is, the way to get that is through um, the way to get through that is through email marketing is a good way to do it. Through LinkedIn is a good way to do it. All those are good ways to do it. Can I go on house call and send all my customers an ad to get work? And how much lights do you recommend buying to start? Good question. So, um, I would recommend to buy, like I say, let me look. I'm going to try to set some packages up together for some lights, which would be probably a roll of your wire with the sockets on, which is, I believe it's 500 or 1,000 foot, and then 500 bulbs. I would probably do 1,000 bulbs, 1,000 feet, a couple rolls of extension cord, and a couple cases of minis, and you're probably looking about 1,500 to 2 grand is what you're looking at. But that's enough to do 8 to 9 houses. So you figure our average was about, I think when last year was almost $1,800. So let's just say your average is $1,000 because you are afraid to sell and that. So $1,000, you're looking at $9,000, $8 to $9,000 out of that $2,000 investment. So pretty good money, pretty good money. Um, so it's all about selling, baby, selling, selling, selling. Um, but so with that being said, I don't see no more questions. I'm going to get off here. I will be back next Thursday, I believe. I'll try to come back on next Thursday. I may try to do some more how to's and that kind of stuff just to kind of give some information so that way. Again, if you would like to go to pressureorchristmaslightshelp.com/in-person training, I am having in-person training. It is very hands-on. You get to do it all. You get to see it all. You get to help put it up. It is limited to 10 people because that way, if I do more than 10 people, I can't. You don't get the hands-on portion. So I want to make sure everybody gets the hands-on portion. And the way to get hands-on portion is you got to be able to touch it. And so that makes things a lot easier. If you want to just do my, I don't know if I have that up yet. Nope, I don't even have that up. You can go to also christmaslightshelp.com/training, and in there is my online course, and I teach everything in depth in there. I go into everything you need to know about Christmas lights in there. I talk about um, I talk everything that you need to know in there of how to get customers and the whole 9 yards. So there's no super chat options on here. Huh, I wonder why that is. I don't know. This is my Christmas light channel. You know what? You might have to have. No, it should be 1,000. I don't know why. I don't know. I have 1,000 subscribers, but I don't know. If you haven't subscribed to this channel, please subscribe to this channel. I'd like to get it up to 5,000 by the end of this year. If as long as I keep putting it information out there. Um, if you don't see much information on this channel, go check out my pressure washing channel at pressurewashhelp.com/YouTube, and I may put some information over there also to try to keep it moving up. But hope you all have a great weekend, and hope to see you next week.